Kello News Talk 1320, 107.9, and Kello.com.
Good morning. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. Just lit the fuse here. Here we go.
I've been listening to you for years, Greg. Thanks for all you do and keeping us informed.
You sound a little taller on radio.
Dispensing a daily dose of common sense, no prescription required.
Americans love a winner and will not tolerate a loser. Americans play to win all the time.
I don't believe in a no-win scenario.
This is the
Good morning, my friend. The marketplace of ideas is open. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show this Friday, January 17th. The big story is this morning, President Biden commuting the sentence of about 2,500 people. These are folks that have been convicted of non-violent drug offenses. And so it's 2,500 people. So it's a pretty big act of clemency. And just to boil it down for you, you look at Joe Biden versus then other presidents, as we look at other recent presidents. President Biden has commuted thousands of sentences, non-violent drug offenders. He's issued numerous pardons. His total clemency actions mean he has done it more than any other modern president. Barack Obama comes in second. He did over 1,700 commutations, 212 pardons. Donald Trump granted 143 pardons, 94 commutations. So I want to put this in perspective for you. George W. Bush issued 189 pardons. Bill Clinton, 396 pardons. Ronald Reagan, 393 pardons. So overall, just trying to give you a historical context. That's a big story in this morning, as you just heard from Fox News. So commuting the sentences of about 2,500 folks. These are nonviolent. They were convicted of nonviolent drug offenses. So this contributes to Biden's record for the most individual pardons and commutations issued by a U.S. president, the most ever. That'll be part of the Joe Biden legacy. Other stories that are out there this morning, of course, Israel and Hamas have now reached a ceasefire agreement. So this was a deal brokered by the United States, Qatar, Egypt. And so there was some hesitation yesterday, but it now has officially been signed as of this morning. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been informed of the agreement. He will be holding a meeting with his political security cabinet. And so Israel will be taking action on this later today. So it will be moving forward. And you've got the families of the hostages who were informed regarding this. This was a statement that was released. The Prime Minister instructed the coordinator for prisoners and missing persons to coordinate preparations for the reception of the hostages upon their return to Israel. So it looks like, thankfully, we may see those hostages being returned to their families finally. Netanyahu's office thanked Donald Trump for his assistance in advancing the release of the hostages, for helping Israel bring an end to the suffering of dozens of hostages and their families. And his office said the Prime Minister made it clear he is committed to returning all of the hostages however he can. And he, again, commended Donald Trump for his remarks that the U.S. would work with Israel to ensure that Gaza will never be a haven for terrorism. So that's an update this morning. Also, in the last 24 hours, the president now has decided not to enforce that TikTok ban. Is going to leave it in the hands of Donald Trump. So there were some who were members of Congress who were asking the president not to enforce the ban. So it looks like those, because otherwise TikTok would have been banned in the U.S. beginning on Sunday over this weekend. And now it looks like that will be held off. So, and again, the ban would require TikTok to divest actually it would be ByteDance to divest their U.S. operations, or they would be shut down, so on. So this, the conversation and the argument, I think, over TikTok will continue. Donald Trump, who had previously been in support of a ban and more recently has indicated no. In fact, he's been on TikTok. He used it to help reach younger Americans in order to, win the White House again. So where we stand with that, anybody knows. We'll see moving forward. Also, coming up today, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem will be appearing today before the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. Her confirmation hearing beginning today. She has been named by Donald Trump to lead the Department of Homeland Security. So that starts at 8 a.m. today. 8 a.m. Central Time is when Kristi Noem's hearing will begin. And I fear losing a number of you at 8 a.m. Also, so we'll see where it goes. We'll talk about this coming up this morning. So there's a lot of reporting on Kristi Noem. I'm just curious. Do you believe she's qualified to serve as Secretary of Homeland Security? We'll talk about that. I think she certainly has been a tremendous governor for South Dakota. So we'll talk about that. Her approach to border security. South Dakota was the first to send South Dakota National Guard troops down to Texas to help support their efforts in monitoring the border. So it'll be interesting. And I'm really curious to see how that goes. And as Senator Mike Round said yesterday, that some of these issues, the issue of her dog Cricket, what happened with that, and what she wrote about it in her book, and that is likely to come up. Is that an issue that really is, in fairness, speaks to her ability to manage the Department of Homeland Security? Let's get real. So that'll be coming up today. And again, her hearing begins this morning at 8 a.m. Central Time. There are some other big stories that I want to touch on, a number of big stories for you here this morning. The wildfires in Los Angeles are forcing the PGA Tour to find an alternate venue for Tiger Woods' tournament. This is the Genesis Invitational. And it's an event hosted by Tiger Woods. Traditionally, it's held at the Riviera Country Club in Pacific Palisades. Well, as you might imagine, it's being relocated due to the wildfires in that area. And I'll talk more about the wildfires and the latest on that for you here in just a few moments. So the new venue has not yet been announced. The country club, the Riviera Country Club, is within the fire evacuation zone, but it has not yet been damaged. But because it's in that evacuation zone, they don't want to mess with it. So they are looking for an alternate venue then for Tiger's tournament. Also, SpaceX's Starship rocket experienced an explosion shortly after launching from Texas. This was the 7th test flight of SpaceX Starship, and they believe it happened due to a fire in the aft section. And it may have been caused by a fuel leak, an oxygen leak. So despite the explosion, SpaceX successfully maneuvered the rocket booster back down to Earth, and that's a setback. They have had a number of successful flights. And this is the thing about space travel, I think, there are setbacks. There, at least, I think we have seen that. We've seen that certainly it's happened to NASA and our government-run operations. I don't think it's going to be any different for these private companies now that are beginning to reach out into space. It's a setback. So the explosion caused some debris to fall into the Atlantic and led the FAA then to briefly alter some of the routes being used by aircraft. And Elon Musk says the next launch will proceed as planned next month. Also, the Montana House of Representatives has endorsed a bill which bans transgender individuals from using bathrooms that do not correspond to their sex assigned at birth. And this is in public buildings. So we're talking about in public buildings, transgenders would not be able to use bathrooms that don't correspond to their sex at birth. And so this is, as you can imagine, every time these issues come up, it can be hotly contested. You've got some Montana representatives who argued against the proposal, saying it unfairly targets trans people without evidence of them being a threat. I'm not entirely sure that that's the issues, but the bill passed with a 58 to 42 party line vote, will proceed to the state Senate. So if that winds up being passed by the Senate, this law in Montana would extend to public facilities, schools, prisons, domestic violence programs, so on. That's a big story this morning. Also, Senator Ted Cruz, we have talked about this before. Donald Trump has talked about the no tax on tips, right? And you and I have discussed that several times. I think we've talked about it. Senator Cruz has introduced the No Tax on Tips Act, and it's aimed at exempting tips from federal taxes. Would allow taxpayers to claim a 100% deduction for tipped wages, which would mean cash, credit, and debit card tips. And this is also being co-sponsored by Senator Steve Daines of Montana, Rick Scott of Florida, Kevin Kramer of North Dakota, and there are a number of folks who are supporting this. The National Restaurant Association among them. So Senator Cruz saying the legislation is, we want to make sure that American workers in tipped industries are able to retain their income, is what Senator Cruz is saying. Other big stories this morning. The Federal Bureau of Investigation last month closed its Office of Diversity and Inclusion. And getting in line then with Donald Trump and his promise to reduce DEI initiatives. So Donald Trump also, following the closure, Donald Trump demanded that the FBI preserve all of the records related to the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. So he wants them to retain all the records, and he labeled the office as corrupt. Yeah, what else is new in the federal government? I think we've seen a lot of corruption in the federal government. So Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee argued that the FBI's focus on DEI is compromising their primary mission of protecting American citizens, she says. And she highlighted concerns that prioritizing DEI led to the hiring of less qualified candidates, and that may have endangered national security, she says. Again, Donald Trump demanding that the FBI preserve all these records from the DEI office, which they have closed again in December of last year. So reports indicate the staff members from the now closed DEI office have threatened to resign if Kash Patel is confirmed as the new director. To which I say, see ya! Okay, so long. I'm not too concerned. One of the stories that's trending this morning, and I'll run down trending stories for you here shortly, is the number of people who are not attending Donald Trump's inauguration. They're not going to be there. Nancy Pelosi now is the latest, who is not going to be. And I'm just like, okay, so long. Yeah. Let's talk about the Palisades fire in Los Angeles. It has now burned nearly 24,000 acres. It's about 22% contained. Unfortunately, the death toll has now risen to 27. 36 people are reported missing. Over 12,000 structures have been destroyed. And it's, I've talked about this previously, number of celebrities who have been impacted, their homes being destroyed, Mel Gibson, a number of others. Evacuation orders have affected 180,000 residents, which is just absolutely incredible. Cause of the fire still under investigation, but that's the latest. I want to take a quick look at stories this morning at foxnews.com. President Biden defending his administration. This is in an interview he did a sit down with. This will be Joe Biden's last interview as president. And he chose to sit down with, are you ready for this? Lawrence O'Donnell of MSNBC. Now he sits down with Lawrence O'Donnell, and he talked about a number of different topics, and among them saying red states. So you're talking about Republican states, right? Republican states. Red states really screwed up their economies, is what he's saying. Among other things that he had mentioned. He said it rejected warnings from economists that the COVID stimulus spending would cause more inflation. Biden said the only way to deal with inflation is to create unemployment and another recession. But guess what? I was absolutely convinced. Give the American people half a shot. They'll step up and get the job done if you give them the opportunity. Look at what they did. They stepped up in every major endeavor. I never believed we couldn't have a soft landing. We had a soft landing. Inflation is down almost to 2%. A lot going on, the president said. And then he made the claim that red states screwed up on their own. And he said, and look, the other thing, Lawrence, I got a lot of criticism, understandably. We've invested more in red states than blue states for two reasons. One, red states really screwed up in terms of the way they handled their economy. and the way they handle manufacturing, the way they handle access to supply chains. What is he talking about? Having to be spending more money on red states. In other words, Republican-run states. They're having to spend more money on Republican-run states. Really? Also, Hawaii Senator Mazie Hirono's making headlines again. She was asking North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum if he had made unwanted sexual advances on others during his confirmation hearing. And folks on social media have not been kind to Senator Hirono. So she's asking him these questions. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature? She's asking Burgum. No, Senator, I have not. Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement related to this kind of conduct? I have not, he says. And this is just bringing a lot of reaction. One who asks, what is wrong with the Democrats? And I thought, now that's a good question. I'm not entirely sure where to start. That's a look at the big stories this morning. 627, partly cloudy, 32. I was so saddened yesterday to learn of the death of legendary baseball broadcaster Bob Uecker. He passed away. And so I'm asking on Facebook, we're remembering Uecker, and I'm asking you to, who's your favorite sports announcer? So please leave your response on my Facebook page this morning. Great to have you along. You're listening to the Greg Belfrage Show on Kello.
Weeknights 5 to 8. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
The Kello Hotline is sponsored by Tires. To give you more tire. Yeah, I'll have more details on Bob Uecker's death coming up in trending stories. I was sad when I heard that yesterday.
Anniversary gift or special birthday gift. Locally owned and operated since 19.
I have a soft spot in my heart, obviously, for broadcasters anyway. Bob Uecker I always thought was funny. And he was a serious broadcaster. Many of us remember him from Major League, but, that was just a character. That was not Bob Uecker.
Connect directly, bid confidently. At Purple Wave Auction, transparency is key. With no reserves and no hidden surprises, you're connected directly to sellers, so you can inspect and bid on quality equipment with confidence.
So anyway, if you feel inclined to share your favorite broadcaster, you weigh in on my Facebook page this morning.
PurpleWave.com and start bidding with peace of mind. Purple Wave Auction, the easiest and most straightforward way to buy and sell equipment.
When disaster strikes, the food supply is the first domino to fall. You can start quiet with an emergency alert, a breaking news headline. But within hours, reality sets in. People rush to grocery stores, emptying shelves of everything from bread to canned goods. Lines stretch out the door, tempers flare, and desperation takes hold. And no matter who's in charge these days, you simply can't rely on the government to bail you out. That's why having an emergency food supply on hand is the right move for you and your family. Right now, you can get $50 off.
Great to have some of you along this morning, watching via YouTube. Thank you so much.
Trusted by millions, offering 2,000 calories per day with essential vitamins and minerals. Keep you strong during the crisis.
Appreciate all of you, whether it's on the air.
Since it lasts up to 25 years. Ship out to you next day. Go to mypatriotsupply.com now.
Okay, here we go. .630, partly cloudy and 32 currently at Kello. Joe Bowman is in the Kello.com News Center. Coming up, Governor Noem in Washington, D.C. for her confirmation hearing today. Also, Attorney General Marty Jackley outlines his legislative agenda for this year. And this coming Monday is a fee-free day at National Park Service sites. Joe will have details.
President Biden is shortening sentences for some federal prisoners who he said would have received shorter sentences if they were convicted today.
With the commutations, President Biden has now issued more individual pardons and commutations than any other president in history. President Biden says he is commuting sentences for nearly 2,500 people serving prison time for nonviolent drug offenses.
Fox's Jared Halbert. Firefighters report more progress getting a handle on wildfires that have burned more than 60 square miles and more than 12,000 homes and other buildings.
Firefighters in Southern California will get a brief break from the winds and the dry conditions today through the weekend. But next week, we could see another Santa Ana wind event that could hamper efforts to control the large fires already burning.
Fox meteorologist Janice Dean, more than 170,000 people are currently under evacuation orders. America's listening to Fox News.
KELO News Time 6:31. I'm Joe Bowman in the KELO.com News Center. Governor Noem is in Washington, D.C. for her confirmation hearing today as Trump's nominee to be the next Secretary of Homeland Security. She'll appear before the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. Senator Mike Rounds says he expects Noem will work her way through the hearings, but she will face some challenges. Here's Rounds appearing on the Greg Belfrage show yesterday.
Most certainly the book that she wrote will be an item that they're going to bring up. As everybody would expect. And, we've talked to her about that. She's prepared for that.
After being nominated last November, Noem says she's humbled by the appointment and looks forward to working with Border Czar Tom Homan to make America safe again. Governor Noem's confirmation hearing starts this morning at 8. Attorney General Marty Jackley outlined his legislative agenda in Pierre yesterday. With thousands of drug arrests in the state in the past year, drug trafficking is among his top concerns. Following the recent trends, meth and fentanyl are the biggest problems.
We made just over 2,500 arrests last year, 160 pounds of meth. We made 330 fentanyl arrests. We had about 18.2 pounds of fentanyl. So what that really means, that's enough fentanyl to kill the population of South Dakota 5 times over.
Human trafficking and government accountability also top Jackley's list. This coming Monday is a fee-free day at National Park Service sites. That means all National Park Service sites will be free to visit. Most sites don't charge an entrance fee, but some do. Fee-free day on January 20th is in celebration of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And in college basketball yesterday, the Jackrabbits crushed North Dakota 109-73, and the Coyotes took down Oral Roberts 92-82. And in college football, USD head football coach Bob Nielsen has just announced he'll be stepping down with plans to retire after coaching 32 seasons of college football. From the KELO.com News Center, I'm Joe Bowman.
The news never stops. KELO News Talk 1320 107.9.
A cold weekend is ahead for the Sioux Falls area. 39 today, increasing clouds. Northwest winds this afternoon at 20 to 40 miles per hour. Cold and blustery for tonight, low temperature at 6. And tomorrow's temperature mainly during the afternoon in the low teens. And by Sunday, highs in the single digits. From the Storm Center at Kibblland TV, I'm meteorologist Brian Karstens.
When you need to know, depend on KELO. News Talk 1320 107.9 and KELO.com.
If nothing else happens between now and Sunday, January 19th, TikTok must stop all operations in the United States.
No, they don't. They don't have to. Biden yesterday
for LinkedIn jobs. Post
gave them a
free
reprieve.
And qualified candidates quickly at LinkedIn.com/Kim. TikTok has argued before the U.S. Supreme Court. The 9 justices didn't buy TikTok's argument that the First Amendment protects it, and so the law, passed by both Republicans and Democrats and signed by President Biden, stands. TikTok is a tool of Red China, a foreign adversary. It poses a grave threat to U.S. national security. But TikTok has almost 200 million users in America. Elon Musk, Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary, billionaire Frank McCourt, and Mark Zuckerberg all want to buy TikTok. There's more.
Can you imagine if Facebook bought TikTok?
Something will happen on the 19th, but TikTok shutting down completely probably won't be it. Sign up for my free
I'll tell you what.
Kim.com. Growing your small business.
I don't know that I'd be crazy about
how well you can
undertaking another social media app, but
LinkedIn has the strongest hiring data and insights.
Depending on if it does wind up being divested and somebody in the U.S. buys it, somebody like Kevin O'Leary or somebody like Elon Musk.
That's why LinkedIn
I would definitely be open to it, but
from unique skills and interests to the connections you have in common.
Just given the number of people on that platform, it's just incredible.
SMBs using LinkedIn say that it helps them.
But my strong suit tends to be with older Americans, not because I am one, but I also think when it comes to news and information and focus on those things. I'm not saying that all young people are not interested in those things, because you got a number of folks that I met who are younger who listen and tell me they love the show, and so they're certainly out there, but not in the numbers that older Americans tend to be. And I hope that's not because I've gotten so damn old.
Thanks, Dad. Doesn't count. What you need is a will. Luckily, Trust and Will makes it easy. Designed by attorneys, but customized by you, you can easily create a state-specific, legally valid document that actually counts. Now, let's hear this tiger purr, am I right? Start your will at trustandwill.com.
Okay.
Offer code COUNT for 10% off and make it count. Trust and Will is an online estate planning service. For details, to trustandwill.com.
The new year means new health goals, not just for your body, but your finances too. Your personal info is in so many places that are outside of your control. It only takes one mistake, and not even your mistake, to expose you to identity theft and lost funds. If your identity's stolen, LifeLock's restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed, or your subscription money back, and resolve to make identity, health, and wealth part of your New Year's goals with LifeLock. Visit LifeLock.com and save up to 40% off your first year with promo code PLAY. Terms apply.
It's tax time. If you need help, call Nest Tax and Bookkeeping Service. Voted your local best for 19 years in a row. Nest Tax is locally owned, professionally staffed with enrolled agents and CPAs, and they're ready to put their knowledge to work for you. Nest Tax is open extended hours and weekends at 2 convenient Sioux Falls locations to serve you. Think you might owe? Find out how much. You can still file now and pay the IRS by April 15th. Nest Tax could find a way for you to owe less, or maybe not even have to pay Uncle Sam at all. The IRS says don't paper file or send in checks. Go to Nest Tax to e-file your return and use direct deposit or direct debit. Call Nest Tax today or schedule with them online at nesttax.com. That's nesttax.com. You're more than just a number at Nest. Locally owned, locally known, locally the best.
By the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
Between now and Inauguration Day, the country is watching.
How will things change in government?
Find out the latest on what's in play and who's leading the way.
Everything you need to know is right here on Kello. New
638. Partly cloudy skies and 32. Thanks so much for joining the Greg Belfrage Show. I was just really saddened when I heard about the death of Bob Uecker yesterday. I think many of us, I certainly remember his work in Major League. I thought he was funny. Those who follow baseball remember Uecker's work in the broadcast booth. So I asked on Facebook this morning, who is your favorite sports broadcaster? Who is your favorite sports broadcaster? And I would love to get your reaction on Facebook, and I will share some of those comments with you throughout the morning.
What's trending now?
Add them on Facebook.
Let the tweeting begin. The hashtag does that. News and views from Belf's News Gallery.
Stories trending this morning. Eric Adams has flown to Mar-a-Lago to meet with Donald Trump after Trump had suggested that Adams is open to receiving a presidential pardon. So Adams traveled to Mar-a-Lago yesterday for an off-diary meeting. So this is all kinds of speculation. Will he, the Telegraph, their left-wing reporting is just sickening, fueling speculation about the embattled mayor's willingness to bend the knee in exchange for clemency. So a spokesman for Adams said he's made it quite clear he's prepared to work with Trump for the good of people in New York. Yeah, that's what any reasonable, rational person would do, right? I mean, you're reasonable, you're rational, you want what's best for your constituents. Of course, would you work with Donald Trump? The Guardian. Oh, man, just some of these websites. Also, I've got a number of stories that are trending involving Donald Trump this morning. Donald Trump announced 3 special envoys yesterday with the purpose of promoting business in Hollywood. And Trump on True Social said, it's my honor to announce Jon Voight, Mel Gibson, and Sylvester Stallone to be special ambassadors to a great but very troubled place, Hollywood, California. They will serve as special envoys to me for the purpose of bringing Hollywood, which has lost much business over the last 4 years, to foreign countries, back bigger, better, and stronger than ever before, Trump said. He's added these 3 very talented people will be my eyes and ears, and I will get done what they suggest. It will again be like the United States of America, the golden age of Hollywood, Trump said. So you remember back in November, Sylvester Stallone had called Trump the second George Washington. And Stallone said, we're in the presence of, you remember at this time, this is back in November, we were in the presence of a really mythical character. Nobody in the world could have pulled off what he pulled off. So I'm in awe, he said. When George Washington defended his country, he had no idea he was going to change the world, because without him, you imagine what the world would look like? Guess what? We've got the second George Washington. That was Sylvester Stallone. So, also, one of Donald Trump's nominees is trending this morning, and this is Treasury nominee Scott Bessent. There are a number of stories regarding Bessent that are trending. One of them is from Newsweek. They say Trump nominee is about to make LGBTQ plus history. Progressives are not cheering. So if Bessent is confirmed, he would become the highest ranking LGBTQ official ever. And they're not happy about it. He's openly gay. He is married to lawyer John Freeman. They have a couple of children together. He's a co-founder of Key Square Group. He previously had worked for George Soros Fund Management. So you've got it's just incredible. So here you've got Donald Trump choosing Bessent here. And of course, the left now, absolutely quiet. Yes, absolutely quiet. Also, there's a story about Bessent opening his confirmation hearing with some attacks on the radical left. This is from Breitbart. Defended the value of tariffs and nuclear energy. So he was questioned by Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon, who is a longtime, Democrat. And Bassett went after Wyden for alleging inaccuracies about the impact of tariffs on the American worker. He said, he said the history of tariffs and tariff theory, optimal tariff theory, does not support what you're saying. That's hardly a shock. And so they got into it, but it's pretty crazy. Bassett handled himself well. He said, Senator Wyden, just so we can frame this for everyone in the room, China will build 100 new coal plants this year. There was not a clean energy race. Or excuse me. He said there was not a clean energy race. There is not a clean energy race. There is an energy race. Excuse me. China will build 10 nuclear plants this year. That is not solar, he said. I am in favor of more nuclear plants. There was also an exchange between Bassett and Bernie Sanders. Which I wish I had in front of me. You'll find that story at foxnews.com. And you may have heard it yesterday during Clay and Buck, an exchange between Bassett and Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders was picking up some of the talking points of the president here in the last few days, and it was just absolutely ridiculous. Then you can find that story at foxnews.com. Also, we've got Democrats who will be skipping Donald Trump's inauguration. Nancy Pelosi will skip it. And this is fueling some blowback from folks on X. So she will not be there. You remember on the campaign trail, Trump had called Pelosi an enemy from within. And said she's a crooked person, Trump had said. Also, the official portraits of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have been unveiled before their inauguration. So the portraits capture them wearing blue suits, white collared shirts, blue ties, and Trump with an American flag pin on his lapel. And when you look at it, you may have seen these already. It looked a lot like Donald Trump's mugshot that he took in Georgia, with his head's down a little bit, and same kind of that just went viral, just took off. Looks very similar to that. Also, the CEO of TikTok has been invited to and is expected to attend Donald Trump's inauguration coming up on Monday. According to people who are familiar with it, a couple of them are Trump transition officials and say that he will be there. Also, this is wild, and you may have heard some of the audio from this. There were two reporters who were, physically removed from Secretary of State Anthony Blinken's final news conference yesterday. They were shouting, interrupting. He was interrupted by Max Blumenthal, who is a left-wing blogger, claimed that Blinken kept the bombs flowing. Why did you sacrifice the rules-based order on the mantle of your commitment to Zionism? Why did you allow my friends to be massacred? Why did you allow my friends' homes in Gaza to be destroyed when we had a deal in May? And just kept going after him. So there were two, apparently. Another blogger who was physically carried out of the event by security because he was repeatedly shouting. And so he was saying, get your hands off me. Get your hands off me, repeatedly. Answer a damn question. I was sitting here quietly, and now I'm being manhandled by 2 or 3 people. You pontificate about a free press. You're hurting me. And he says that like 3, 4 times. I'm asking questions. I think if you're asking questions, you can do that probably without, it coming down to being hauled out of a news conference, can it? I mean, the ability to ask questions. Also, and this just, oh man, staffers on Capitol Hill, some staffers on Capitol Hill calling for a rotating 32-hour work week in order to combat burnout. So, we've talked about this before, 32-hour work week. It's there are those who are pushing that less and less time. And so Yahoo.com, of course, Yahoo News, this piece, the 32-hour work week has been steadily growing more popular. More and more businesses are experimenting with versions of it, and many workers say it makes them not just happier, but more productive. And so now they want to do that in Congress. These congressional staffers want a 32-hour work week. And how many hours do you work a week, generally? How many hours do you generally work? And at what point do you face burnout? Okay, I work a minimum of a 40-hour work week, minimum 40 hours. And at the end of 40 hours, I don't feel burned out. Now, part of that is because I love what I'm doing. I love what I do. I don't love everything I do, but I love, overwhelming majority of my job. I love my job. So working, if I wind up working, generally I probably put in the neighborhood between, I would say, closer to 50 hours a week. I know folks who work 60 to 70 hours a week, and you may be one of them. So this 32-hour work week for congressional staffers, what's your reaction to that? Okay. Mentioned the death of Bob Uecker, and that story is trending this morning. This is just sad. Bob Uecker, known as Mr. Baseball, and he's got honors from the Hall of Fame. He has passed away this week. He was 90 years old. He died yesterday morning, and the Brewers called it one of the most difficult days in Milwaukee Brewers history. And Uecker's family says that he had been battling small cell lung cancer since early 2023. And even in the face of this challenge, his family wrote, his enthusiasm for life was always present, never allowing his spirit to falter. You and I, most of us know Bob Uecker best for his work in Major League. You might remember him from his appearances on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. You might remember him from the Miller Lite beer commercials of the 1980s, which were funny as hell. I'm going to share one of those during the 4th hour today. just absolutely cracked me up. Uecker is great in it. So Bob Uecker has died at the age of 90. And as we, pay tribute to Bob Uecker, I asked on Facebook, and I welcome your comments, who's your favorite sports broadcaster? Who might that be? So you can weigh in on my Facebook page. And again, I'm hoping to share some of those reactions with you throughout the morning. Also, another death, unfortunately, to share with you, director, writer David Lynch. He did films like Blue Velvet, Also, network television with Twin Peaks. He has died. David Lynch was 78. And he said last year that he had been diagnosed with emphysema. He had smoked throughout his lifetime. And when he made the announcement, he said he likely would not be able to leave his house any longer. So his family, in a Facebook post, said there's a big hole in the world right now that he's no longer with us. But as he would say, keep your eye on the donut and not on the hole. Also, Lev Golf and Fox Sports have agreed to a multi-year media rights agreement with the coverage of their 14 tournament schedule will be starting next month, according to Fox Sports. So there are not a lot of additional details that have been released, but so Fox taking over the broadcast rights from the CW, which have aired Lev Golf tournaments for the past 2 years, and we'll see that moving to Fox Sports. Also, there's a story this trending this morning that about Walmart. Walmart has changed their logo. And they made a big announcement. We're changing the logo. Well, actually, what they did was they just kind of tweaked their logo. They didn't change their logo. They tweaked it. It's the same logo they've had. You might look at it and say, maybe say it's the same damn thing I've been seeing for the last, yeah, they just like broadened it in places and they're getting a lot of negative reaction on social media. And that's a look at the stories trending this morning in Belf's News Gallery. Thanks for starting your day with the Greg Belfrage Show. Partly cloudy and 32. And you're listening to Kello.
Business news and business.
Thanks so much for being here. I hope you'll come back at 9:30 for the 4th hour of the Greg Belfrage Show. So I'll see you then. Have a great weekend, my friend. You take care.